music ended. And yeah, upbeat stories or activities planned today for yourself? Oh, tons. I'll be talking about my visit to Bydgoszcz yesterday, the city where the lecture of the medic, the field medic, took place. That is such an upbeat story. I always feel people with such upbeat stories that are so positive. All those positive things that are so positive. Um, I'll be probably releasing some of the material of the trip itself. I got there late. I missed most of the lecture itself. But I did get some interesting things out of it. I got to listen about the situation at the front from the perspective of a medic. The leading medic of a group of medics, actually. Not just an individual medic, but more of a leader of a group of medics. Field medics. The sort of medics that go with the soldiers to the front lines. So, as the person himself put it, we go to places from where you don't return. Which is why every time they go to the front, they are prepared that some of the medics will not make it back. Definitely. They were recruiting as well. They were recruiting yesterday as well. They said that the last recruitment they did, they got over 300 medics that wanted to join the front line and help. And apparently from these 300 something people, only 30 were selected as okay to be taken to the front line. Out of over 300 volunteers, 30 sort of made it through the process of recruiting to become volunteer medics on the front line. That is so wild to think about, isn't it? It's not a job. It's not something that people will get paid for. It's not something that has great benefits, and yet the recruitment for it is very strict because of the nature of what's being done. Which is why out of 300 volunteers, 30 get chosen to be taken to the front line. You have your house back. That's good. So, what qualifies someone as good enough for the front lines beyond having medical experience? Well, for one, you have to be able to take the pressure of operating under constant enemy fire. That would be a big factor of whether or not you're good enough to qualify as good enough for the front lines. If you can actually handle being at the front lines. If you can actually handle being shot at non-stop while you treat others. While if you can handle being directly targeted, because medics in Ukraine are prime targets for Russian forces. There are many if you can handle the rough um sort of environment, that oftentimes the place where you will be stabilizing patients will be dugouts. So, those little bases underground where soldiers live, for example, artillery crews. Um, I think that's mainly it. Being able to handle the work conditions. Being prepared to die at any moment, of course. That's also a factor. Being prepared for the fact that you could die at any moment. Being prepared to die. That's since, again, as the medic stressed, where they go, you don't return from. The places they go to assist the soldiers, you do not return from. And people must be prepared for that. Of course, many other things were said, I'm probably gonna save it for just. I'm just gonna translate what I've recorded and I'm gonna release it on the channel as videos. Things like the medic explaining the order in which it's decided who should be taken to the hospital, who should be left behind, because there are certain cases in which people must be left behind. What are the procedures for field medics? What are those procedures based on? And that's actually an interesting topic, because the procedures for medical care on the battlefield is apparently based on the American standard. And the American standard is ill-equipped, is ill-fitted to the realities of this war, because they're based on the wars in apparently Iraq, Afghanistan. But those wars were not quite as artillery heavy as this one. This war has a lot more artillery warfare involved than the wars that the US standard of field medic care is based on. And so, there was a push to update those standards. But the problem is that there is no proper medical documentation kept on patients that are being treated on the field and off the field in Ukraine. And that creates a problem in creating proper documentation on which a new standard could be developed. I mean, the situation is pretty rough when it comes to the soldier personnel, which is why even people with amputated limbs go back to the front line. Even if not the front line, people with missing limbs will go back to service in logistic capacity, for example. Also, there apparently is a problem of people being drafted into the army no matter what their, like people being accepted into the army no matter what their pre-existing conditions are, which means that the field medics sometimes have to go and help people that do not suffer any war injuries but simply have a heart attack because of their pre-existing medical status. They just happen to suffer a heart attack, so they have to be taken off the field. Uh, and of course, the medic gave his opinion as to what the situation is at the front line. I must admit, I've not from no other source than that medic that gave the uh, lecture today have I heard such a grim picture of what's going on the front line. He gave his assessment as to how the Russians are doing, medicine wise and otherwise. And things are tough. And the Russian army is improving. The Russian army is improving. From the words of that medic, the Russians have improved significantly their medical prowess. Their medical kits have improved significantly. As the medic put it, which will be in the video that I will be uploading, Russia has received a vaccine. Russia has been vaccinated by its experience throughout this war, by the experience of how Ukrainians fight, by the experience of what Western equipment is capable of, and what the West is in general capable of. It has been a real vaccine to Russian forces. And so Russia has been adapting. Well, Russia has improved on their medical kits from before. Russia has also improved on their technology. Apparently, Russia is also starting to improve on their tactics. They're doing less mindless meat waves than before. Overall, things are getting quite unpleasant, according to the medic at least. Which left me sort of hoping that he is exaggerating somewhat because of the horrors that he experiences firsthand. That is sort of what I've been hoping. It's pretty doomerish, let me just say that. The atmosphere is pretty doomerish. Do we know who, if any, nation is assisting Russia? Are they also getting weapons and troops sent for their side? I imagine they are. Well, you imagine correctly. They are getting help from North Korea, Iran, and China. Which, by the way, the medical equipment from China is actually apparently pretty low quality. And Russia has been depending on that less, which has improved it. Apparently, Chinese equipment is not up to standard in many cases. Of course, the support varies. With China, it's a lot less uh, than North Korea and Iran. North Korea and Iran are pretty openly assisting Russia by providing weapons, missiles, shells. Russia itself has ramped up its shell production. Its factories are working 24 hours per day, basically, to ramp up production, to ramp up the production. And of course, aid is still being blocked. As the medic put it, Ukraine has no means to fight with, which we all know, and there is a risk of there not being people capable of fighting. The medic actually did sort of touch upon the fact that the average age of a soldier, according to him, he said it's 45, which sort of clashes with the official data, which I'm inclined to sort of go towards trusting the official data more. But the medic said that a person in their 40s might be fit, feel fit, and be ready. But one has to take into consideration that one day on the battlefield, one intense day on the battlefield exploits your body in a way that an active lifestyle in a city will exploit your body in a week. Okay, you go through as much exhaustion in one day that a person that lives their life in peacetime in a city will go through in a week as a frontline soldier. And that is sort of an important factor when it comes to um, this whole war. He spoke of certain traumas that were not taken seriously by the Ukrainian command, which also caused soldier casualties because soldiers were treated as pretending. Because there's such a thing that when you're near an explosion, pressure of the explosion can sort of damage you. You won't have any external wounds, but you will be disoriented, your balance will be messed up, your breathing will be messed up, your everything will be messed up. You might even have internal injuries, and this sort of injury, this sort of uh, trauma was sort of brushed off as people just pretending to get off the front, which resulted in soldiers dying because they just couldn't breathe and suffocated. And of course, the medic did sort of note that there are a lot of people that are actually pretending to get off the front line because war is horrible business, and not every single person is a Terminator that is just perfectly fine to fight and experiences no fear or wish to just run away. So this is one aspect of the lecture that I actually was able to catch. The explanation of the pressure, sort of. If a person is showing symptoms of such trauma from pressure, from explosions, the procedure is to take them away from the battlefield because they are not too fit for service anymore. The the symptoms alone deem such a soldier unfit for service and sort of out of the battlefield. And the procedure is to take them for observation for at least a week. And after the observation, there is further treatment, or they can go back to the battlefield. Such is the nature of these things. Someone has to fight and someone has to defend Ukraine. Especially since Russia is throwing much bigger numbers of people at the front line with much less regard for their safety and life. Although, as I've said, apparently the medical technology of Russia has improved significantly right now. So things are tough. The way he has described it is um, first there's shelling, and then the aircrafts bomb the position to hell. And once the place is sufficiently um, shelled and bombed, the Ukrainian forces currently are simply forced to move back because the defense position that they are currently occupying becomes useless. It becomes destroyed beyond use, so they are forced to get back, retreat, regroup to a safer position. So that's been the lecture. That's been the lecture that I've attended on the standard medical, how the medics operate on the battlefield of Ukraine. There's been a lot of interesting things said, how this war, for many veterans of recent wars, but they are finding it difficult to adapt to this new war, that people are finding it to adapt to its constant chaos, how it's different. I wanted to add something else. I'm trying to remember. What else I wanted to add. Also, I'm sure there was something else that I wanted to add. Something significant. They were trying to recruit even more. Hello. They were trying to recruit from the audience because the audience were actually, apart from me, the audience was basically doctors, med students, soldiers. That was the audience apart from me. Soldiers, med students, and doctors. So the person did try to recruit by saying, things are tough, things are horrible, we go to the place from which you do not return, but if you would still like to try yourself, we welcome you to apply. We welcome you to try yourself in this war, even though it's pretty tough, even though you might just die. Yes, I've been there as their recorder of the event, which they did ask me to. They did ask me to send whatever I've recorded because apparently I've been the only person recording the event at all. So after stream I will send them what I've got. I will send them my material, which will be uploaded to the medical university of Bydgoszcz. The videos that I've recorded. So there will be available on my channel as well as on the university page, I guess. I don't have any skills as a soldier, and I especially don't have any experience or skill as a medic. So I'll just be a burden